Hi, I'm Shae Russell from ABC Refinery, and joining me today is Griffith, CEO of Goldfields. Chris, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Shae, and thanks for the opportunity.
Chris, it's great to have you here. Now, while you have an extensive history of working within and running major international mining companies around the world, you now bring your expertise to Goldfield and its many projects. Since commencing with Goldfields in April 2021, one of the first steps you took was to review Goldfields' strategies and values. What prompted you to establish these new pillars, and why are these three the most important issues facing Goldfields today?
Shae, when I took over Goldfields in April of last year, I took over a company with a well-established track record. Goldfields' strategic shift, which was launched in 2013, which was focused on moving the company away from a labor-intensive conventional mining to focus on more mechanized operations with a more international footprint. That strategic move has served the company well. In addition, the reinvestment program in the company over the preceding 4 years has also placed Goldfields in a position where it can maintain its production profile over the next 3-4 years. So the bottom line around that, Goldfields was in really good shape. But it was to build on this platform to take the company even beyond its current production profile and position it for the long term, that the focus of these three pillars of the strategy was then focused on. We think that the critical strategies or focus areas that we have identified to achieve this and to expand our long-term sustainable growth potential. Firstly, we're focused on just maximizing the potential from our current assets through both people and innovation. Secondly, to grow the value and the quality of our portfolio of mines. And then thirdly, I think very importantly for the discussion we're about to have, is our stakeholders, which include our shareholders, are expecting us to align the business even more closely with increasingly critical environmental, social, and governance issues, or ESG issues, that are confronting both society and the company. So it's for that reason that we've elevated ESG out of sort of the things that we do to a key component of the company's strategy. And we have titled the third leg of our strategy, Building on Our Leading Commitment to ESG, and that becomes the third leg of our strategy.
I'm actually glad you mentioned ESG then, because Goldfields has already been a global leader in ESG policies, so much so that S&P Global ranked Goldfields in the top 15% of over 7,000 mining companies they assessed around the world. So what possible additional ESG commitments are you making, and how are you going to achieve these?
So Shae, thanks for raising that. I mean, you know, out of the top 71 companies, we the third leading gold mining company across the world. So I believe that Goldfields was already on the right track in terms of its ESG commitments, and particularly in areas like climate change abatement and community investment. But there are also other critical areas that required the same focus. And also, I think the areas that we'd already been focusing on, it required us to lift the bar again. So therefore, we took a significant step on our ESG journey. Apart from now elevating ESG to a key strategy for the company, we've also made a range of commitments in our 2030 ESG targets that we launched in December. These targets are now fully integrated at all of our operations, and they're prioritized for implementation. So, for example, the targets that we headlined, firstly, of course, I think everyone's focused on decarbonization and carbon emissions. So we've made a commitment to reduce our scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by 30% on a net basis. Now, that sort of sounds like everyone's commitment. So, well, you know, pretty much everyone's got a 30% commitment. But I think the important thing for Goldfields is actually our production continues to grow. So if we're going to get a 30% net reduction, it means that we actually have to have a 50% absolute emission reduction by 2030 just to make it 2030 because of the growth of the company's production. So also as a result of the signatory to the Paris Agreement on climate change, Gold Fields, like most of its peers, has also committed to a net zero carbon by 2050. And of course, as I said to you, this is as our production continues to grow, so it just makes our job harder. But we're also setting new ambitious goals for water and for environmental stewardship. We're setting new goals for our tailings facilities and also for creating value to our stakeholders, in particular the communities that surround our operations. But also for our employees, we're seeking to make further improvements in safety, health, and well-being, and to also increase our inclusion and diversity by targeting a 30% female workforce by 2030.
That's a fantastic answer. And you actually touched on something there that I would like to move on to now. Now, you made an off-the-cuff comment that, you know, everyone has these goals, but Gold Fields has gone and done something that almost nobody else in the industry has done. And I want to talk about your Agnew mine in Western Australia. Now, in November 2021, Agnew's hybrid renewable microgrid was officially operational. Now, we already know mining is an energy-intensive business, yet somehow the Agnew mine drew 57% of its energy need from renewable sources in 2021. This is the highest of any gold mine in the world. Now, this is a remarkable achievement, but I do have a two-part question for you. Are renewable energy grids the future of gold mining? And secondly, can what's been established at Agnew be rolled out to your other assets?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really is, I think, something special for Gold Fields. While sort of a lot of other companies are sort of waving their arms and talking about things, you know, Gold Fields is already well on its way and has, you know, done quite a few sites, but now with this big microgrid, I think has really established a really new baseline for the mining industry. Yeah, I think microgrids are the way to go. I don't think you can purely rely just on one renewable energy source, and I think that's what Agnew has shown us. As you know, that at Agnew we both have wind and solar, but we also still rely on some gas use and batteries for the switchover periods. So I think it's this combination of sources, both renewables and batteries, and you know, and still some combination of historical sources. But you know, over time, we're going to wean ourselves off those historical sources. But I think they are the way of the future. And I think it's going to be, you know, I think even for Gold Fields, Agnew has shown us just how far we can go. We have already rolled out microgrids at some of our other Western Australia mines. We started at Granny's, a little bit smaller, I think just to sort of put our toes into the water. And that's been operational since 2020. We've got Gruyere, our latest mine in Western Australia, that's coming on stream in the next few months. So we're hoping by the end of this quarter, we're going to have our third mine that's going to have renewables in place. And over time, we'll grow these percentages and grow our footprints at these mines. But already we're going to have 3 mines that have renewables on board. As we build the new Salares Norte mine in Chile, that also is in the next year or so going to have solar and diesel microgrid as we commission that mine. But as we speak, our largest emitter, which is our South Deep mine in South Africa, we are currently underway with a 50 megawatt solar plant to complement the grid electricity we receive. So yeah, I think your comment, Shae, is great because, you know, we're not just waving our arms and we're not just making commitments. This is already in action at Gold Fields.
It's fantastic news to see. Now I want to tap into something that I know your shareholders are going to want to discuss. You've outlined a fairly impressive growth strategy, and you see Gold Fields' output, you're expecting it to rise to 2.8 million ounces in the next 2 years, which when I was trawling through your books, it's a significant leap on the current output of 2.3 million ounces, 2.33 million ounces already produced. Now, given Gold Fields already has assets nearing the end of their life, what project is going to deliver this growth? And then how are you going to maintain that level of production?
We actually see over the next few years this growth to 2.8 million ounces. And that's largely on the back of two components. The largest of that is the Solaris Norte project that we were busy constructing in Chile. Under very difficult circumstances at the moment worldwide to deliver a project in the sort of the COVID era, where supply chains across the world have been disrupted, where it's increasingly difficult to get people to these assets. This project remains on track, within budget, and set for delivery at the end of the first quarter in 2023. So we'll be adding 450,000 ounces on an annualized basis just from this project at Solaris. And then we continue with our growth at South Deep. So that's been a particularly troublesome asset for us for some time. But over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years or something, we've really seen South Deep start delivering on its commitments. And that growth continues. And we'll see another 20 to 30% growth from South Deep in South Africa over the next 4 years or so. So that gets us sort of to the 2.8 million ounces, and we can sustain that for a period of time. But then some of our assets at the end of their lives start, well, then coming to the end, and you would expect then on a normalized basis we'd come off a bit. Now the plan is actually to not come off a bit, and therefore we've got quite a few things, including investing in some of our existing assets. So just growing the mineral reserve and resource at our existing mines. We continue to invest in exploration, and we've done a great job in Australia, for example, at our 4 mines there, of growing our resource base and not only matching our depletion, but also growing our mines. So we certainly can see a 10-year production profile from Australia. But then also we'll be looking at value accretive, smaller acquisition opportunities over a period of time. Now we've got a few years to do that. So we're not pushed with our back against a wall. And a combination of those two things, investing in our existing operations, as well as looking for value accretive opportunities, we think that we can maintain that production that we've grown to 2.8 million ounces over the next 10 years or so.
Now, I want to touch on something that has impacted almost all of us globally. Now, this is COVID. We are 2 years deep into the pandemic, and COVID and its associated disruptions just aren't going away. Given Gold Fields has assets in several locations around the world, how do you manage these risks, given that government requirements are different across multiple territories?
Yeah, I think firstly, I mean, this has been an incredible journey over the last 2 years, and it has, there's no portion of the globe that hasn't been affected by it. But the one common theme that our primary defense right across the world against this virus has been vaccination. We've had extensive vaccination campaigns in all the countries around the world: Australia, South Africa, Peru, Chile, Ghana. And I think that's what's helped us generally limit the impact of the pandemic and the restrictions on our operations. So we've actively promoted this. So we've done this through leadership at all of our regions. We are very pleased that right across the group, more than 80% of our people are fully vaccinated. So, and we now about 93, 94% with 1 dose. And so, in Western Australia, that we've introduced mandatory vaccination. So 100% of our workforce is vaccinated. But I think it's in our other regions where we've had, just by leadership, where there haven't been the sort of government directives of mandatory vaccination. And it's that leadership that has taken us to over 80% vaccination. And I think that's helped us to be able to get on and be able to live with COVID. I think we've also continued to support our workforce through a whole range of other initiatives, through educational awareness programs, so that people feel comfortable. For example, taking, excuse the birds in the background. So we've, I think it's been through education. We have implemented stringent safety protocols, so of course, to keep people safe. We've had rapid testing, medical assistance, and a whole range of other initiatives. We spent about $50 million so far at our operations around the world on a range of initiatives and interventions. And that's been all sorts of things, like expanding camps that we have, testing equipment, additional labor in some cases, and then also transporting of folks so that, people can still be social distanced. We've donated almost more than $5 million just to government initiatives around the world. So I think generally we've done, I think, a great job in Goldfields around the world. I think the saddest part of that, though, is that whilst COVID has been well managed, we have, COVID has still had a devastating impact on the lives of people. We've lost 20 of our colleagues to the pandemic across the world. And I think that, no matter how well you think you've done, it's the loss of lives due to COVID that has hit the company and the people in the company the hardest.
Now, finally, I just want to, before we wrap up today, touch on one more question. And this is really about what the future holds for you at Goldfields, because your tenure at Goldfields is really only just beginning. What is the thing you would like to deliver next for Goldfields?
Yeah, I think 2022 is going to be a year of implementation of our strategy. There's a lot of things about strategy that are not in the headlights, so things that you do to improve the company's culture and the way you run the company and the way people feel about the company. So there's a lot of things that in our strategy that are not in the headlights that are going to be our big focus areas in the company for this year. So 2022 and 2023, I think, are going to be years of implementation of the strategy. Clearly, there's lots of work to be done, but as we spoke about our production growth, still delivering Solaris, as you see from the massive impact that it has, positive impact on the growth of the company. And given that it's one of the lowest cost producers in the world, it's very important that we deliver the project on time. So clearly this year is a big year for us, given that early next year we've got to deliver first gold. So delivering on Solaris is going to be a big focus area for us this year. But then a number of other mines. We've still got South Deep that continues with its growth, and the other mines, we'll be looking to them in a kind of time across the world of inflation, mining inflation way above normal inflation, and we're seeing inflation rising. So we've got a lot of work to do on cost and production to make sure that we sort of, that costs don't run away from us in the company. And then, of course, our ESG, implementing our ESG priorities. So lots of work to do, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. But I think the thing for me, that we have not run Goldfields in its history in a year without a fatality. So, we generally have not been able to escape having one fatality in our company in the year, and that's going to be our biggest focus. I mean, all these other things don't matter if not 100% of our folk, our employees in the company, don't go home safely to their families. So I think that's going to be, it always is our first priority and our first value, and that's certainly going to be maintained. And this year, we're all aiming for this to be the first year that Goldfields goes fatality free, and then all of the delivery and these other things is in context with being fatality free. Yeah, so lots of things for us is going to keep us busy this year. This year is the implementation of our strategy.
Chris, it sounds like you've not only got some wonderful goals there at Goldfields, but in addition, some wonderful values that you're bringing to the business. Chris, that unfortunately brings our time to an end today, but I just want to say thank you very much for answering my questions, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Shae. It was a great pleasure.